Thank you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Today we are discussing Canto number 2, text chapter 4, text 22. So we can get started. Prachodita yena pura saraswati vitanva tajasya satim smritim hridi swalakshana pradur bhuta kilasayataha sami rishinam rishabha prasidatam. Once more, we can hear this verse. Prachoditayen pura saraswati vitanvata jasya satim smritim hridi swalakshana pradurbhuta kilasayataha sami rishinam rishibha prasidatam. The synonyms: Prachodita, inspired. Yena, by whom. Pura, in the beginning of creation. Saraswati, the goddess of learning. Vitanvata, amplified. Ajasya, of Brahma, the first created living being. Satim smritim, potent memory. Hridi, in the heart. Swa, in his own. Lakshana, aiming at. Pradurlabhut, was generated. Kila, as if. Asyataha, from the mouth. Sah, me, may, unto me. Rishinam, of the teachers. Rishabhaha, the chief. Prasidatam, be pleased. Translation. May the Lord, who in the beginning of the creation amplified the potent knowledge of Brahma from within his heart and inspired him with full knowledge of creation and of his own self, and who appeared to be generated from the mouth of Brahma, be pleased with me. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. As we have already discussed herein before, the Lord, as the super soul of all living beings, from Brahma to the insignificant ant, endows all with the required knowledge potent in every living being. A living being is sufficiently potent to possess knowledge from the Lord in the proportion of 50/64 or 78% of the full knowledge acquirable. Since the living being is constitutionally part and parcel of the Lord, he is unable to assimilate all the knowledge that the Lord possesses himself. In the conditioned state, the living being is subject to forgetting everything after a change of body, known as death. This potent knowledge is again inspired by the Lord from within the heart of every living being, and it is known as the awakening of knowledge. For it is compared to awakening from sleep or unconsciousness. The awakening of knowledge is under the full control of the Lord, and therefore we find in the practical world different grades of knowledge in different persons. This awakening of knowledge is neither an automatic nor a material interaction. The supply source is the Lord himself, Dhiyampati. For even Brahma is also subject to this regulation of the Supreme Creator. In the beginning of creation, Brahma is first born without any father and mother, because before Brahma, there were no other living beings. Brahma is born from the lotus which grows from the abdomen of the Garbhodakshai Vishnu, and therefore he is known as Aja. This Brahma or Aja is also a living being, part and parcel of the Lord. But being the most pious devotee of the Lord, Brahma is inspired by the Lord to create, subsequent to the main creation by the Lord through the agency of material nature. Therefore, neither the material nature nor Brahma is independent of the Lord. The material scientists can merely observe the reactions of material nature without understanding the direction behind such activities, as a child can see the action of electricity without any knowledge of the powerhouse engineer. This imperfect knowledge of the material scientist is due to a poor fund of knowledge. The Vedic knowledge was therefore first impregnated within Brahma, and it appears that Brahma distributed the Vedic knowledge. Brahma is undoubtedly the speaker of the Vedic knowledge, but actually he was inspired by the Lord to receive such transcendental knowledge, as it directly descends from the Lord. The Vedas are therefore called Apurusheya, or not imparted by any created being. Before the creation, the Lord was there, Narayana Paro Vyaktat, and therefore the words spoken by the Lord are vibrations of transcendental sound. There is a gulf of difference between the two qualities of sound, namely prakat and aprakat. The physicist can only deal with the prakat sound, or sound vibrated in the material sky. And therefore, we must know that the material sounds recorded in symbolic expression cannot be understood by anyone within the universe unless and until one is inspired by the vibration of supernatural aprakat sound, which descends in the chain of disciplic succession from the Lord to Brahma, from Brahma to Narad, and from Narad to Vyas, and so on. No mundane scholar can translate or reveal the true import of the Vedic mantras, hymns. They cannot be understood unless one is inspired or initiated by the authorized spiritual master. The original spiritual master is the Lord himself, and the succession comes down through the sources of parampara, as clearly stated in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So unless one receives the transcendental knowledge from the authorized parampara, one should be considered useless, nishphala mataha, even though one may be greatly qualified in the mundane advancements of arts and sciences. Sukadev Goswami is praying to the Lord by dint of being inspired from within by the Lord, so that he could rightly explain the facts and figures of creation, as inquired by Maharaj Parikshit. A spiritual master is not a theoretical speculator like the mundane scholar, but is Shrotriyam Brahma Nishtam. Okay, so today we have a very packed purport, so let's get started. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this is a very, very nice verse here. And if we, before we start discussing the verse, I was thinking I'll give like a brief overview quickly about the context of this verse. So this we are studying chapter 2, canto 2, chapter 4, process of creation. And from text 1 to 4, in this chapter, we see that Parikshit Maharaj is concentrating his mind on Krishna, and he is detaching himself from all material things. And in text 5 and 10, we see Parikshit Maharaj raises a few very pertinent questions. He asks, how does the Lord create, maintain, and destroy this universe? And how does he enact, his primary and secondary creations? How does he expand himself? He also glorifies the Lord. And then from 11 to 25, text 11 to 25, Sukdev Goswami goes through a series of prayers. Those prayers are in two categories. From 12 to 18, his prayers are mainly obeisances unto the Lord. They end with obeisances unto the Lord. They glorify the Lord and end with obeisances unto the Lord. And text 19 to 23, he has a series of prayers, and he says, may the Lord be pleased with me. Like in 19, he says the Lord is the super soul and personification of Vedas, is worshipped by Brahma, Shiva, and may such a Lord be pleased with me. 20, he says he's the protector, and and then he goes into detail. And then 21, he gives liberation, and his and devotees see the absolute truth by meditating on his lotus feet. And may the Lord be pleased with me. And so this particular verse here is also in the category of, the same category of prayers. May the Lord be pleased with me. So if you look at the translation over here, a few points are, I just wanted to highlight. It says over here that may the Lord, who from the beginning of creation amplified the potent knowledge of Brahma from within his heart. And he did two things. That is, he inspired him with full knowledge of creation, and he also inspired him with his own self. And who appeared to be generated from the mouth of Brahma, be pleased with me. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is mainly discussing about how knowledge is awakened. And we can divide this purport into three parts. The first part of the purport mainly talks about how living entities get knowledge and how from the Lord. And the second part of the purport talks about mainly Brahma and how he was inspired for creation and Vedic knowledge. And the third part of the purport is how the material knowledge is different from the spiritual knowledge, and how do we really get spiritual knowledge. So the first part of the purport now we can discuss here. Now in the purport, Srila Prabhupada very beautifully says it that, the Lord is the super soul. He endows every living being, whether it's Brahma or even it's an ant, with knowledge. And a living being can only sufficiently possess knowledge up, for 78% of the full knowledge available. Why? Because we are, Lord is supreme and we are part and parcel. So we cannot assimilate all the knowledge, but we can, possess knowledge to a certain percentage. And what happens in death is that we forget knowledge, and then it is inspired again by the Lord. And that is called awakening of knowledge. And this is under full control of the Lord. And that's why we see that there are different grades of knowledge in different people, and this because the supply source is the Lord himself. So everything comes from the Lord. Even the awakening of knowledge that we have, it just comes, it's not like our own thing. It comes from the Lord. And Bhagavad Gita 10.10 also, touches on this in some way. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. And there Lord Krishna says, To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. And of course, here he's talking about Krishna consciousness or Buddhi Yoga. And Prabhupada writes in the purport that Buddhi Yoga is action in Krishna consciousness, and that is the highest intelligence. And that is actually given by the Lord. Because if one is devoted to serving him with love, then the Lord gives that understanding to them. And similar thing is said in Bhagavad Gita 10.11 also, Tesham Ivanukham Partham Aham Agnanatam Jam Tamaha Nashyami Atma Bhavasto Jnana Deepena Bhashvata. So there also he says, to show them special mercy, I dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. And some people think that purport, says that, some people think that devotees are sentimentalists, but they are not actually. They are very, very learned scholars who have put forward the philosophy of devotion. But then this is helped by Krishna from within. This is helped by Krishna from within the heart. That is, it comes from there, and without that, one cannot be engaged in Krishna consciousness also. And then there's, of course, the purport does talk about also that how we can get only a proportion of the knowledge. That is because the Lord is supreme. We can only get a proportion of the knowledge, and that too by only his mercy. So this reminded me also of Nectar of Devotion, where we studied about the qualities of Sri Krishna. And Rupa Goswami, he has outlined there that Lord Krishna has 50 qualities. First, he starts with 50. Of course, Lord Krishna has more, but he starts with 50. And then he very clearly makes the point that as parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, the individual living entities can also possess these qualities and minute quantities, provided they become pure devotees of the Lord. So in minute qualities, it's not that we can always, have the whole knowledge, because the Lord Krishna is supreme. And then other than 50 qualities, Lord Krishna possesses 5 more, which is actually also in Brahma and Lord Shiva. And then the text says, that and then he possesses 5 others, which is in the body of Narayan. And then there are 4 more, which only Krishna has. And those are interesting. So I'll just read it. He's the performer of wonderful variety of pastimes, especially his childhood pastimes. He's surrounded by devotees endowed with wonderful love of Godhead. He can attract all living beings all over the universe by playing his flute. And he has a wonderful excellence of beauty that cannot be rivaled anywhere in creation. So these are the 64 qualities, but we, living being, can only have a minute quantity of these qualities, and pure devotees especially. So that ties in with our purport here, is that even the knowledge is dependent on Lord Krishna, and we can possess 78% of the full knowledge acquirable. Now the next part of the purport goes on discussion to Brahma's, mainly Brahma, and that, how Brahma was born first, and therefore he was born from the abdomen of Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, and so he's known as Aja. Okay, and he's the, what really happened is that he was really inspired by the Brahma, by Lord Krishna, to share Vedic knowledge. And so I thought I'll quickly discuss Brahma Samhita here, because some part of Brahma Samhita, just because we are talking about Lord Brahma here, and mostly even in the translation, the emphasis is on Lord Brahma. So Brahma Samhita, it's interesting, and the Brahma Samhita book that we have is the 5th chapter of the Hymns of Brahma. It was recorded in 100th chapter, and actually Lord Chaitanya himself had picked up this chapter from the temple of Adi Keshava at Tiruvattar, in Kerala. And this particular Brahma Samhita, it can be compared to Srimad Bhagavatam in the sense that it is regarding Lord Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead and glorifying Lord Krishna. And Brahma Samhita, of course, begins with right in the first shloka. We all probably know it, but it starts with the Ishvara Paramaha Krishna Sachidanand Vigraha Anandir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karana. Means Krishna, who is known as Govinda, as the supreme Godhead. He is an eternal, blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, and he's the prime cause of all causes. So it starts right with the glorification of Lord Krishna. And in the 18th shloka, of course, in Brahma Samhita itself, it is said that when Vishnu was lying in the ocean of milk, when Vishnu, lying in the ocean of milk, wills to create this universe, a golden lotus springs from his navel pit. The golden lotus with its stem is the abode of Brahma, representing Brahmaloka or Satyaloka, which is the highest planet. And then, the next shloka goes on, that the divine lotus, which springs from the navel pit of Vishnu, is in every way related to the spirit by the spiritual tie with all souls, and is the origin of the four-faced Brahma, versed in the four Vedas. And what really happens when Brahma gets born is that when he comes out of the lotus, Brahma, being guided by the divine potency, tuned his mind to the art of creation under the impulse of previous impressions. But he could see nothing but darkness all around. So first, when he comes out, he gets a little bewildered because he doesn't know really what to do. And so, Goddess Saraswati, she empowers him to meditate upon Lord Krishna. And when Lord Brahma meditates upon Lord Krishna, in the spiritual realm, then he hears the divine sound of like Krishna's flute. And Srila Prabhupada has described in the book Teachings of Lord Chaitanya that when the sound vibration of Krishna's flute is expressed through the mouth of Brahma, it becomes Gayatri. And what happens is that, when he meditates on the Gayatri, then Brahma realizes the supreme truth. And then in Brahma Samhita, you have a series of verses where he's really, sharing his realization. These are like glorifications of Lord Krishna and, how he is the supreme personality of Godhead and everything rests on him. Very beautiful poems. And very quickly here, we don't have too much time, but what I'm planning to do is discuss the last 5 verses of Brahma Samhita really quickly, because this is how, the knowledge gets awakened. Brahma gets also inspired by creation also. And there's some good lessons for us also we can learn as devotees. So in 557, when Brahma starts glorifying, Lord Krishna says to Brahma, if you experience the inclination to create offspring by being endowed with the real knowledge of the glory of Godhead, listen, my beloved, from me to the signs set forth in the following 5 shlokas. So Lord Krishna is saying, that if you are inclined to create offspring, if you are going to create living beings, and after being endowed with real knowledge of me, then only you can create. It's not that you can just create on your own. I mean, that's Lord Krishna is always there behind creation itself. So then Lord Krishna instructs him about 5 shlokas, science shlokas. And he says, first, this is in 558, when the pure spiritual experience is excited by means of cognition and service bhakti, super excellent, unalloyed devotion characterized by love of Godhead is awakened towards Krishna, the beloved of all souls. So when bhakti rises, then what happens is that devotion for Godhead comes automatically. You'll just become very, very devoted. That's what a bhakti is all about. And towards Krishna in particular, who is the supreme personality of Godhead. And then the next shloka says, the highest devotion is attained by slow degrees, by method of constant endeavor for self-realization with the help of scriptural evidence, theistic conduct, and perseverance in practice. So this is very interesting because Lord Krishna says the highest devotion, it only comes in slow degrees. It's not that like tomorrow you'll get the knowledge and you become like all knowledgeable. It has to be like slow degrees, because there has to be this constant endeavor for self-realization. And how? Through scriptures, theistic conduct. Theistic conduct in the purport it is described, it means pious conduct, like you're learning from pure devotees, from the conduct of pure devotees who are, in spontaneous love, from their qualities, learning from them. And perseverance, you all the time going on, you're not like giving up. It's like the tortoise in that hare story, you never really give up, you just keep on. Slowly, you go to the goal. And then the third one, 560, it says, the preliminary practices of sadhana bhakti are conducive to the realization of loving devotion. So whatever we're doing preliminary in sadhana bhakti, that is good. And then loving devotion, than whom there is no superior well-being, goes hand in hand with the attainment of exclusive state of supreme bliss, and who can lead to myself. So if we are doing sadhana bhakti, but we can keep the goal of like ultimate bliss, raganuga bhakti in mind, but we can just start with sadhana bhakti, the preliminary practice of sadhana bhakti, because this is conducive to us realizing loving devotion. And then in 561, he says, abandoning all meritorious performances, serve me with faith. The realization will correspond to the nature of one's faith. The people on this work act ceaselessly in pursuance of such ideals. By meditating on me by means of those deeds, one will obtain devotion characterized by love in the shape of supreme service. So all of us, actually, what happens is, we have to do our duties, we have to do our day-to-day activities. And very beautifully, the shloka explains, the Supreme Lord says that this world subsists by constant performance of certain activities. We have to do them. But what we have to do is fill these activities with meditation of me. And that will destroy the quality. They will no longer appear as acts that are done by you, and they will be like my bhakti, if you do it in that way. And in the end, of course, since we are talking about Brahma, and how he has to be inspired for creation, Bhakti Saraswati, Siddhanta Saraswati, he, in the end, he says, he talks a little bit about Brahma, and he says, and our shloka is also talking about Brahma. So Brahma cherishes the desire for creation in his heart. If that creative desire is practiced by conjoining the same with the meditation of obeying the command of the Lord, then it will be a subsidiary spiritual function, being helpful for the growth of the disposition of the service of the divinity by reason of its characteristic of seeking the protection of Godhead. This means like Brahma is actually, he is desiring to create, but what happens is that he should do so with an aim of obeying the command of the God, and also he should do it as a service to the Lord. So in that way, he gets the protection of the Lord. So even what we are doing in our day-to-day life, we have to do it like as a service to the Lord, and and as though this is what is within our quota. And so, we're given this kind of, activity to do, and we should seek the Lord's protection and meditate on the Lord and then start it. In that way, it becomes a service to the Lord, even our day-to-day activities. And the last, of course, shloka says, listen, O Vidhi, I am the seed, the fundamental principle of this world of animate and inanimate object. I am the pradhan, I am the prakriti, I am the purusha. The fiery energy that belongs specially to the Brahman that inheres in you has also been conferred by me. It is by bearing this fiery energy that you regulate this phenomenal world of animate and inanimate objects. So everything here, what this verse is trying to say is everything is coming from Lord Krishna, basically, and of course, very beautifully, of course, our acharyas, especially in Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur, in this verse, he ends this Brahma Samhita. He ends it with this whole thing of, we are the same as the Lord as well as we are the different of the Lord. That is the concept of Achinta Bheda, which is fundamental to us being, because this is we are following Lord Chaitanya. that we are the same as well as we have difference, like just like the sun and the sunshine. The sunshine can never really equal the sun. So, but we are part of the sunshine. So we are like some people in the Vedas, they believe that they are the same as God. Some believe that they are different as God. But in our lineage, we believe that we are part of the same and the part of the and are different in the same way as like the sun and the sunshine are the same and different. And that's how this is the last shloka, and that's how it ends. That so let the attainment of love for Krishna by the practice of pure devotion through the knowledge of their material relationship that subsets between the Jiva, Jada, and Krishna on the principle of simultaneous distinction and non-difference be my instruction for being handed down in the order of spiritual perception succession of your community, Sri Brahma Sampradaya. And so, okay, so now we discuss the second part. And the third part, it basically says that the material knowledge is very different from the spiritual knowledge, because the spiritual knowledge comes from the spiritual realm. And so it has to be got through disciplic succession. We just can't get it one day, wake up and suddenly get it on its own. And Prabhupada also refers over here in this purport to Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4. Evam parampara praptam is what 4.2 is saying. Evam parampara praptam imam rajasya vidosa kalena mahata yogo nashta paramtapa. That is, this supreme science in Bhagavad Gita is saying was received through the chain of disciplic succession, and saintly kings understood it in that way, but in course of time succession was broken and the science was lost. But then the Lord came again and then imparted it to Arjuna, and then that is how, again, the change started. So the disciplic succession is how we get it. We get it from the spiritual master. Spiritual master is not an ordinary being. He's not like a mundane scholar who's qualified like in arts and sciences, but he is empowered because he is very much part of the disciplic succession. And so that is the right way of getting knowledge, Prabhupada says. So quickly summarizing this particular shloka, there were 3 parts of the shloka. In the purport. One was how the living beings, we get knowledge. We cannot get knowledge without the Lord, and we can get only a proportion of the knowledge, that too only when we are empowered by Lord Krishna. Second part is Lord Brahma, how he is inspired for creation and how he has to dedicate everything to Lord Krishna, seek his protection and do it as a service. And then he gets inspired, his Vedic knowledge comes and is inspired from Lord Krishna himself. And then the third part is how we get the knowledge from disciplic succession, and that is the right way to get knowledge. So that's all I have for today. If you have any comments, please go ahead. I think we are pretty much done otherwise.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. I don't know, everybody is silent because there is nothing we can say. You covered everything so nicely. And and the origin of who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the first person, the first citizen of the universe himself is explaining everything in Brahma Samhita. What else do you think we can speculate anyway? Just listen. Just listen, that's all. Once I had one question to my spiritual master about the Srimad Bhagavatam. Maharaj, in South India, it's one of the verses say it is, some of the rivers are so sacred. So how do we understand?
Mm-hmm.
And he looked at me and he said, what? It is coming from Srimad Bhagavatam. We don't have to do anything. Just accept it. If you don't want to accept that, what is that kind of a devotee you are? Right? So whatever is coming from Srimad Bhagavatam, you just accept it. That's the only answer he gave me. Then I understood how strong the Guru. That's where the concept of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra come in. So that means they're very, very just accept whatever the Guru and whatever the scripture said. Just accept. We are not accepting anything other scriptures, whatever in the Srimad Bhagavatam in line, in parampara, we just accept.
Yes.
So just like that, we can discuss more and glorify more, but there is no question that how is this possible? That is your limitation of your brain. That's all. In that way, we have to just accept. That's my thought, Mataji. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you for the comment. Yes, and I think we are so lucky also, as you said, like, we are studying Srimad Bhagavatam, and especially in our Sampradaya, there's so much emphasis, and Srila Prabhupada has written such nice purports, and all we have to do is read it, and that's it. It's all available to us. So we are really fortunate. Anybody else? Or
Hare Krishna Mataji, this is Sachi Sutadas. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So thank you, Mataji. It's a very nice class. I really enjoyed the structure and the anatomy of contents, that how you break it out and summarized. It was a level-headed content, and you presented it so well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the blessing. And yeah, I also enjoyed preparing for the class, Prabhu. So glad you liked it. Anybody else? Okay. If not, then we can conclude. Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna.